What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 152 of Valleytown. I'm ChanManV, and joining me today is Gaara, who was supposed to be on the show when I tweeted this out, but the guy on the end is not the British guy that you're expecting. Which
I can be subtle if you want.
Are you sure you can be subtle? You sure you could do that?
I'm not actually mean enough to be subtle.
Yeah,
but...
that's what I was going to say. Exactly.
And I'm not tall enough to be subtle either.
Oh yeah. Well, if you get on your tippy toes like he does, you know, it's all good, you know. So, yeah. So, anyways, we got a lot to talk about. Gaara, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Just finished my stream, finished my grind of today.
Nice.
And yeah, ready to do some nice talking.
Nice talking.
What's Hearthstone?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I hope you're ready to talk about Worlds, because we've got a lot to talk about in terms of last week, the World Championships. And we actually have a pretty cool perspective, because Falcone was actually doing a lot of other stuff that I think we got a chance to see here and there with some in between the matches type of content. So we can't wait to hear about that. Like things like panels and interviews and things like that. So it's going to be.
They had me running around like a headless chicken for most of the weekend. It was great fun though. Most of what I did hasn't been published yet, but yeah, there were little snippets of it released in the mainstream throughout the weekend.
It hasn't been like, why hasn't it been published? Like, is it for some future stuff, or is it just?
There's one YouTube video we shot specifically for YouTube, and then there's like the full versions of the panels, which are being uploaded either on Twitch or YouTube. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well,
did you get your shirt from there?
I did actually. Yeah.
Nice.
Seems like a Blizzard special.
Year of the Mammoth.
Yeah. Year of the Mammoth. Yeah, that's what it is. Only the casters get it, right? Like, that's the only place I've.
Oh, they were giving them away.
Oh, were they? Dang it. Yeah. Dang it.
Yeah.
Well,
are you gonna stop wearing it after the rotation?
I guess I should.
So. I would hope so, given it'd be
very funny. Next level roleplay.
Yeah, what's the next year gonna be? It's year of the. So it's Kraken, Mammoth. What is this then?
Year of the Pirates.
Pirates? Year of patches? Oh,
I think we've had that one.
How funny would that be, man? Patches for like 0 months.
We were theory crafting on stream. Imagine they make like a 1/1 Murloc that gets pulled by like a Murloc with charge.
Creeper,
then everyone plays War Leader instead of South Sea Captain.
Oh god, that'd be like exactly the same.
Oh no, it was so funny.
I don't think that would be that funny, but anyways. Well, I just want to let folks know that this episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you guys are not familiar with ZipRecruiter, it's a job recruiting site that you can either look for jobs or look for people to help you with some of the projects that you're having. But we'll go into a little bit later, but I just want to let you guys know up front. Also, we're going to be just diving into the World Championships. We're going to talk about the matches, maybe some of the trends, the decks, just everything about Worlds, basically. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about meta. I know Gaara's been grinding away, doing awesome with some incredible win rate, apparently. And definitely he'll give us the lowdown on what's going on in terms of what he's been seeing at the top of Legend. And then we got some Q&A at the end. We've got 3 questions from viewers, fans, patrons. And, if you're interested in sending us a question, go ahead and email us, valuetown@chanmanv.tv, and we'll try to get that on each and every week. So, another thing too is we're also sponsored by patrons, of course. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to Valuetown or go to patreon.com/Valuetown and check that out. All right, guys. So our week in Hearthstone. So obviously Falcone, it was at Amsterdam. I surprisingly was at Amsterdam, but didn't go to Worlds.
Well, that's no good.
As stupid as that sounds, I was actually there from Tuesday to Thursday, and got a chance to see everybody, or almost everybody. I didn't get a chance to see you guys and the casters, but did see almost all the players that were competing, hanging out with them, and definitely a lot of fun. Amsterdam's great city. Kind of cold though, I have to say, and windy and a bit stormy, I think, even when the event started. But overall, it's a really, really cool town. Did you have, or Dan, did you have a good time there or no?
I had a great time. You mentioned the stormy weather though, and I've got a pretty funny story about that. I came to the event with my girlfriend, and we were walking to the event on the first day, and there were like huge metal signposts just swinging all over the place.
Oh my God.
And as we were walking like past the building towards the entrance, a roof tile fell off and smashed on the ground in front of us.
Oh,
And like there were people by the entrance like waving at us saying, "Get away from the wall, get away from the wall." So we almost died, which is fun.
God.
But
Okay.
we didn't die, and as far as I know, nobody was injured miraculously. But yeah, after when I was safe, it was great fun, the whole event.
Yeah, definitely. Gaara, I know you're at home though, right? So did you get a chance to catch some of the matches? I mean, I know catching it live was tough because you were streaming, but maybe some of the
I already like when I looked at the schedule before it started, I was like, wait, it starts at 8 a.m. in the morning. It's like, man, like I have to change my sleep schedule just to wake up that early to like who's gonna wake up this early to watch like Hearthstone, right? Like you have to be such a dedicated fan. It was in the middle of the night for NA.
I stayed up.
What did you say?
2
a.m. or something.
It was like 2
dedication.
Yeah.
Like so, whenever I woke up and tuned in, like a group phase already finished. There was like.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of look at it under the perspective that they don't expect everyone to watch the whole event in its entirety. Mm-hmm. Like they'll expect a lot of people to go in, like choose their champion and then go in and just watch their games.
Yeah.
And maybe watch the semis and the finals.
They should have, because I feel like this event had a lot of great matches, and to be honest, I think the first match of the days never were that great. I'd have to look again, like comparatively speaking. I don't think the first
part of the plan.
Yeah, it was definitely later on in the day. I think in midday and later in the day where some of the epic matches happened. So,
but honestly, there were so many good players there that pretty much almost every match was like a really good match.
Oh yeah. I mean, all 16 were amazing, and a lot of fan favorites and notable names there, which to be honest got knocked out early. I think most of the people that folks were rooting for from the standpoint of picking champions and stuff, I think got knocked out pretty early. But Frozen obviously made it pretty far, and I think a lot of people picked Frozen too. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting event. If we're just gonna kind of go straight into that now.
Yeah.
I guess what did y'all's take on the World Championship? Like, how do you compare this World Championships to like previous ones? Because this is the first one that wasn't at BlizzCon. So what's y'all's take on it? Do you like this? Do you like this non-BlizzCon World Championship, or would you prefer to be back at BlizzCon?
Personally speaking, Amsterdam is much closer to me than BlizzCon.
Come on. Okay.
But no, in all seriousness, the fact that Hearthstone is at the point now where it justifies getting its own event, and especially on the last few days of the tournament, it was packed. Like the main stage area, the room was that there was a queue to get in about, I don't know, 3 hours before it opened. Mm-hmm. And then there was a full overflow theater. And then there was the tavern as well with a second stage on which had people watching it in. There was a lot of support and a lot of dedicated people there to watch Hearthstone. And I think that's fantastic to see. I think if Hearthstone can continue to grow, then hell yeah, it should get its own event. I
mean, it was sold out, right? And there were, I believe there were like 1,000 seats there too. And they were all these kind of tavern benches too, like it was like a very tavern feeling thing, right? So they had a lot of these benches there, benches meaning like tables and kind of picnic table benches type of setup there that you've seen at other events, but there were a lot of them. I mean, it went deep into the room, so that was really cool.
But what really struck me about the main stage area, especially on the final day, is that it wasn't like some of the events we've seen in the past where people are sort of doing their own thing, playing games together and playing on their own device. Like everyone had all their eyes on the stage, watching the players, watching the casters, watching the screen. Like everyone at the event was incredibly invested in what was going on.
Yeah, that was cool. You could hear the crowd, right? Like every time, Lethal was there, or some kind of amazing play, or even just when a player was able to calculate something out. I mean, you could tell that the crowd was a very educated crowd. They knew what they were. Mm-hmm. They definitely knew how to play Hearthstone. So
and that's the bonus of Hearthstone having its own event and not being at BlizzCon. Because if it's a BlizzCon, you've just sort of got people wandering around and they're fans of all the games, may as well check out some of the Hearthstone. But at this event, everyone's there for Hearthstone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Therefore, you get the dedicated audience.
Yeah, Gaara, what do you think? You like it better at the BlizzCon, or you like it here?
I think it was a huge scheduling mistake they did. I think it has such a weird feeling to crown the world champion of 2017 in 2018. it is so weird. Like
Okay.
also after like it happening in January is so weird. For like the World Champion of 2017, I think it should still happen in 2017, and I think it would be so much better. The location is awesome, like Amsterdam, and that it was kind of like in an off season or seasonal month. Like January, December, usually there are very few events, and it's great that it's happening like in winter and stuff. But I think it would be so much better if it happens in December, because December is the off season, the one off season we have in Hearthstone, like with no ladder grind and nothing. Like the people that went to Worlds, they missed out on a lot of ladder grinding for the next year.
The qualifiers too, right? Yeah.
A lot of qualifiers for the Pro Tour and so forth. And it has like this feeling like we crowned the 2017 World Champion still in 2017, right? Okay. So then we have like still the December, right? It's so awesome. Also, like there's a lot of people having like vacation and free time. It doesn't have to be like close to the New Year's, but it can be around Christmas, I would say. It doesn't really have to be exactly at Christmas, but it kind of like Seed Story that we had, kind of right at that time frame. December off season and still in Amsterdam, the location was great. But I think if it would happen 1 month earlier, it would be so much better for everyone. I think.
Yeah, it would. I know what you're saying, and I generally agree with the fact that it would have been nice to have it in 2017. Scheduling, I think, could have been really tough, because if we don't have it at BlizzCon, right, and they still have to do stuff at BlizzCon, so the Hearthstone team is still super busy during BlizzCon. So maybe, I mean, BlizzCon, you still have like what, a month and a half at least until the end of the year, so. I don't know. Maybe they could have done it, you know.
But do you know how sick that would be? Like how close it would be, much closer to the expansion release. Like Seed Story was the first event after the expansion. Imagine 2 weeks.
That's a whole argument.
Yeah, but
2 weeks.
No, there's no way. No, so I disagree with that. I would definitely not like to see basically a crazy changing meta determine the world.
No, 2 weeks. Give them 2 weeks. That's enough.
It's so tricky.
Count the best player.
I've heard arguments on both sides. Like the way they've been doing it last year is that they've been waiting and sort of had the playoffs or had the championships as sort of the mastery of the meta. Like who has mastered it the very most? Whereas other people say, you know, in Magic they have world championships a week or two after the set comes out because there's skill in deck building and there's skill in surprising other players. And we really saw how that was a thing in Trinity, right? We saw Team Love You Lots completely dominate everyone else because they just had a better understanding of which are the good cards, which are the bad cards. They had correctly assessed that Corridor Creeper was bonkers, whereas everyone else had ignored that. And so
do you think they deserve to win then because of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so
Trinity,
I totally agree with you guys in a certain aspect. I just don't think it applies to the world championships because you know, one thing that I really appreciated in this one, and I mean it's happened at times in previous world championships too, but this one in particular, I felt like you really felt the skill involved with a lot of these matches. I mean, there were so many, you know, very complicated scenarios that were able to be, you know, conveyed on air, which is very, very hard to do. And I don't think that would have happened as much if we're just talking about like people not figuring out, you know, certain decks and they're just somebody's figuring out the meta beforehand. So that was the thing that I appreciated about it, even being, you know, like a couple months after, you know, the last time that these players have played, you know, so they have had all that time to prepare and they were very, very prepared. You could tell, right?
Honestly, I don't know which side of the argument I fall on, but I think that the arguments for both sides are very interesting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I totally believe that we need to have a, you know, pretty major event that does basically play into the fact, you know, who figures out the meta first, you know, who's actually great at deck building and stuff like that. I'm totally on board for that. I just don't think it should have been, you know, determining basically the grand, you know, world champion of that year. So,
sure.
But yeah, so kind of getting into, you know, just, you know, I don't know if we dive quite into the matches yet, but maybe look at just the general meta or what we kind of noticed.
How about champions? Did you guys pick one?
So I
come on.
I forgot to pick one actually.
No,
I was gonna pick one literally it was the day after it actually expired. And I was gonna pick orange actually. So
I think you and Tice both forgot to pick one as well. They had to say that to me in one of the panels.
Oh,
like, so who's your champion? And everyone's like, well, actually, we got that too late.
Yeah, sorry, really? So I would have picked orange anyways. But who did you guys pick?
I picked Samuel Tsao. like because
Okay, yeah, that's a good
we had the show like right before, right, where we talked about all the lineups, and then his lineup looked like so cool. Like he was the only one who brought Zoo, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was like such a different lineup than everyone else. So I was like, yeah, and I didn't want to be biased because I wanted so many of these to win, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm friends with most of them, like Hoy, Surrender, Orange, Colento, like I just didn't want to be biased. Like whoever wins of them, Mazi, I would be fine with it. So I just wanted to pick like a cool lineup and like actually on paper like an interesting lineup. So
I think you mentioned Sam like on Value Town, right? Even when
he got me like 3 packs or something. It feels good, man.
It was really hard this year because the lineup was so good, as it should be for the World Championships.
Yeah.
But I managed to get my shortlist down to I think 9 names, and then just knocked them one by
short
one.
list of 9.
Yeah,
it's 16.
Exactly. That's how good they are, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up with Hoy, who ended up being the first player eliminated.
I think a lot of people.
So then I switched to Ant. And I obviously didn't actually switch my champion to Ant, but like who I was supporting, like, okay, now it's Ant. And he also went 0 and 2 and was out straight away. So I don't know. I didn't have much luck.
Dude, I had this streak of matches where the guy that I was rooting for was getting beat. It was like, I forget, it started with Ant, then it was like Orange, and then Naria, and then somebody. It was like everybody that I picked up, like, okay, I better just like not pick any kind of favorite in these matches because they keep losing.
But I did really like both Frozen and Sinto because of the control mage.
Oh god, yeah, so good. Those matches were amazing too. I think the control mage and it was basically control mage against Raza, and then the Jade Druid versus Raza. I think those were probably the best matches that we saw. It was crazy.
Did you see the control mage versus the Dragon Priest, where the priest then from Dragon Operative got Jaina? And that was the
Sentinel. Yeah, that was like I think the best series of the entire match. Yeah, the Frozen Sentinel one where they both had Jaina and. Somehow...
And there was a lot of dodgy play in that game as well. Like there are a lot of weird mistakes going on. It's a very interesting one to dissect.
Yeah. I mean, they were, how often do you get Jaina as a priest? So yeah, it was. I mean, he was behind at that point, but then Jaina kind of gave him, a chance to come back. So I felt like that was probably the match of the series for me, the Frozen Sentinel one. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely check that out. But yeah, to your point though, I think the control mage was definitely one of those rare decks that were brought, and it had a huge impact. I mean, both of those guys got to the semifinals, right? With the semifinals and the finals with that deck.
What was really great is that on the first day of the tournament, I hosted a panel with RDU, Tyson, Firebat. And in this panel, we were talking about, decks you like, decks you don't like. And Firebat brought up Control Mage as a deck he really did not like. And RDU and Tice just had this huge argument with him for about 10 minutes about the Control Mage.
On air? Like on
well, it wasn't being streamed anywhere, but there was a live audience in front of us, and it will be uploaded to YouTube, hopefully later this week.
Okay.
And they had this huge argument, and Firebat was insisting it loses to Priest, and the other guys are insisting it beats Priest and saying to him, you haven't even played the deck. If you played it, then you know. And they had this huge argument, which then came up multiple times in various panels throughout the weekend. And obviously, Firebat kind of lost that argument because Control Mage did very well and actually beat more Priests than it lost to.
Well, I mean, I have to look at the HS replay stats, but I think it might, from a general standpoint, be favorable for the Raza. It's kind of like that whole rogue argument, right? Tempo Rogue versus Raza Priest. Like, I think, on paper, I think Raza Priest, I believe, beats it, right? But when you talk about these top pros at, like World Championships, the Rogue actually does better. So
it depends who's piloting it entirely.
Yeah.
Like, if you just take a sample of random Legend players versus the top 16 players in the world, the matchup could be dramatically different because there is a huge skill gap between average Legend player and top tier player, right?
Yeah. So it definitely top pro meta is, or at least matchups are definitely work out a little bit different. Gaara, what did you think of the whole Jade decision? Because, one of the Value Towns leading up to the World Championships, we just talked about just all the different decks, right? We kind of reviewed all the decks. And, one of the biggest bisection, with the players was that some of them brought Jade, like half of them brought Jade, half of them brought Aggro Druid. And in the end, it seemed like the Jade Druid ended up, or the players that brought Jade Druid did better than the ones that brought Aggro Druid. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, why did that happen? Like, in your opinion?
It's because of the ban strategy. Because like I was playing all these Conquest Pro Tour qualifiers, and they have the same format. And if you ban Warlock, it's basically like the problem is the two remaining decks. This is basically what these lineups had the biggest difference. Everyone brought like Razakus Priest, or most people brought Razakus Priest, and then Demon Lock as the second deck. Those are like by far the best two decks in the game. And then the third best deck is kind of like Rogue, a variation of Tempo Rogue. And then the fourth best deck is usually Jade Druid, just the raw power level. And Jade Druid horribly loses to every version of Demon Lock. And this is why most people are banning Warlock and not Priest, because you can build Jade Druid to target Priest. The armor Jade Druid counters Razakus Priest like pretty well.
High percentage, yeah, very high percentage normally.
It's actually the only real counter deck to Razakus Priest, I would say, the Jade armor druid, because it has so much armor and it's very fast, and it's actually a good deck with a high power level. Like the power level of that deck is way higher than Big Mage, because you just have better cards overall. You have Ramp, you have Ultimate Infestation, you have like all these good cards. And Big Mage basically just is like a clunky deck with a lot of RNG. Like you can, these Ravens that can just not win the joust and don't draw you cards and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's what made the Frozen list really interesting, because it ran Arcane Intellect and Ice Barrier and Ice Block, all of these low cost spell cards that made the EV of the Raven and the Dragon's Fury even worse.
Yeah, the overall power level of Jade Druid is better than Aggro Druid. Aggro Druid is not a very good deck, and you have a better strategy with Jade Druid than with Aggro Druid, and you just get more wins against Priest and stuff. So this is for me not surprising at all.
Yeah.
Also that most people, it might be a surprise for people that almost everyone but Warlock and not Priest,
right?
Because the tournaments before that, everyone but Priest.
Yeah.
It's just for the overall strategy, it makes more sense to ban Warlock.
Well, I mean, I think it was for the betterment of the tournament that ended up happening too, because as cool as Q Block is, I mean, it's not nearly as hard to like eke out wins or figure out winning conditions as it is with the Highlander Priest, Rizaka, whatever version of the Highlander Priest you're running. So I think it was great that we ended up seeing it. We only saw maybe 3 or 4 matches that had even the Q Block in it. I mean, we saw the Zoolock. We definitely saw that a couple times, a few times, but not too much of the Q Block.
It's very similar to the HCT Pro Tour qualifier. I think in 5 qualifiers I got to play Warlock twice. So that many people ban Warlock.
It's just too good. Well, I mean, it crushes aggro too. Yeah,
it's just a better ban strategy, isn't it? As Gaara was saying earlier, you can create a lineup of decks better that is weak against Warlock than is weak against Priest.
It's really hard to find these 2 extra classes that fit in the lineup.
Yeah. And the Jade Druid argument's really interesting, because again, in the panel at the start of the tournament when nobody knew any better, all 3 of the guys I was with were insisting that Jade Druid is going to be one of the worst decks of the tournament.
Oh man, that's the complete opposite. Yeah.
They said Jade Druid and Paladin. Well, the interesting thing is that wasn't it Jade Druid that Frozen got reverse swept with Jade Druid at the end, right?
Yep.
So like you could argue that the Jade Druid really let Frozen down there.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of great draws by Tom in those last 3 games too. So
the most interesting thing in the final game for me was that Frozen threw away Ultimate Infestation and Tom kept his Ultimate Infestation in the mulligan, which I was sat with Lothar watching the finals. Lothar said to me straight away, "Oh, like I don't understand why Frozen did that. He just threw. Why did he throw that away? It's the most important card in the matchup."
Well, Gaara, like, would you agree with that? I mean, if you're playing a mirror match,
they play completely 2 different lists.
That's right.
Frozen plays like a tempo variant with Violet Teachers. So and also with Mark. So he wants to get on the board early. That's how he is gonna win against Tom's version, because he's a slow version. And Tom's version like relies on the Ultimate Infestation with the ramp. It's just different decks that they're playing.
So it wasn't a mistake in your mind. Okay.
No, it also heavily depends on the cards you have in your initial mulligan. That you mulligan away. Like how high is the percentage?
Tom had like 2 ramp cards. He had
Walker
and
he
had Shade Blossom. So
I think Frozen would also keep Ultimate Infestation if he has double ramp, even though he has like such a fast version of the deck.
Okay.
I mean, it depends on many factors. You can't just say by default, it's correct to mulligan it away or keep it.
Yeah, and those of you wondering what we're talking about, in the finals, on the final game, literally game 5 of the finals. It was a mirror matchup with Jade Druid, and both of them had Ultimate Infestation in their original mulligan pick, and Frozen ended up dropping his while Tom kept his, and Tom ended up the Ultimate Infestation was huge for him at the end. He drew the second one too, even before Frozen did. So it was just better draws too for Tom at the end, and that one Rogue game too, where I think Frozen was up 2-0, or he was up 2-1 at the time, I believe. And then he just gets the crazy, the crazy Edwin, right? Where he gets a 10-10 Edwin on turn 2, I think it was. That was disgusting, or turn 3. So the finals was probably not the best series, unfortunately. Like the lead up to it was extremely awesome.
The fact it was a reverse sweep in itself is pretty insane.
It was still epic. It came down to game 5. It was still, pretty cool, but
I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember thinking that the first game in that series was incredible. I think that was the Control Mage beating I don't remember what it was matched up against. I think it was Jade Druid. Yeah, that's right. Because Skulking Guys came just in time.
Right. Yeah.
I remember that being a particularly good game.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that was super close too. I wonder what would happen if Tom would have won that one. Actually, it would have been. I don't know. I mean, for the most part, I think Frozen was feeling super confident going into it because his decks just matched up really well against Tom's. But in the end, you know what it ended up costing Frozen? It was the confetti, dude. Totally, that guy cost Frozen.
Jinx. This totally is the definition of jinxing something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was the ultra jinx.
Yeah.
It was the live jinx.
Those of you that didn't watch
it,
those of you didn't watch it, Frozen got like his second, I think he went up 2-0, right? It was like the second game, he wins it, and then they're all just getting ready for game 3, and then all of a sudden the confetti guns just fire off. So there's like confetti just floating around everything and falling on top of all the players.
I remember at the venue.
Crazy.
I remember at the venue there were like security men running around, like what's going on? Like for like a second, security jumped into action. I guess they were worried someone had fired a gun or something, and then obviously we saw the confetti.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Because the sound, we all heard the sound. It was sort of like that.
Yeah.
Like a moment before we actually saw anything, and for just a second, security did their job and did a good job too.
Yeah. So it was like a moment of levity, but if you're superstitious or whatever, it's one of those, oh man, it might have just like ruined ruined whatever momentum, some mystical momentum that was going on there. Who knows?
Frozen will have nightmares about confetti for the next year.
I know, right? Totally. Anything else in the event meta you think maybe worth bringing up that was cool? I was hoping to see Orange's Hunter more. Because we did see it one time and it performed well. Because he was the one guy that would let Q-Block go because it's like straight out counter to that, right? So I don't know. Any other deck that kind of stood out to you that performed super well?
I really like Dragon Priest. I've liked the deck for a while now. The Dragon Combo Priest, I mean. So the way you use the Twilight Acolyte and the potion. Dragon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, not Razakus. Like.
You mean Scintillol's combo priest.
Scintilla. So you have the Twilight Acolyte, the Potion of Madness. You take the Void Lord, you double its health, you match the attack and smack him in the face with it. Just such a rewarding way of winning games. And obviously it did very well for Cinto, and it was a good fun deck to watch.
Yeah, you're never completely out of it with that deck. You can Potion of Madness, like a Northshire Cleric and turn it into something ridiculous. So seeing people play kind of counterplay to that sort of plays too was really cool, and like you said, it did really, really well for Synthilol. Synthilol is a funny dude, by the way. I met Cinto for the first time maybe on Tuesday. He's a cool dude. Definitely not like what I thought he was like.
He's funny.
Yeah, he's good guy.
He's a nice guy in real life, but like when Raven had to interview him once after a win, I remember him asking Cinto a question, Cinto giving a one-word answer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and then Raven was like, okay, why? And then handed the mic back to Cinto. Then Cinto started talking, but like for a moment there, I think, I don't know, I felt really, really sorry for Raven having to conduct that interview.
Okay. Yeah, he doesn't seem like that. He's definitely not short of words. That guy.
But you can say the same about Zix, though, right? Like in person, he is a totally Zixo. He's a totally different person in person than he is like on Twitter or how he portrays himself on stream.
On Twitter,
he's actually.
What are you talking about? On Twitter, he's like the biggest shitposter ever.
Well, exactly, but like in real life,
Not
in real life,
like
he's
you mean like that? Okay, yeah, that.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy in real life.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so why don't we go and talk about maybe best series? You know, kind of candidates for best series. And you know, we mentioned Frozen Sentinel. I think that was my favorite, and especially the ending too, because I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to see it live or whatever, but you know, Frozen is one of those guys that doesn't normally show very much emotion. Like, you know, he's a very level, you know, headed. That's the way he plays too, and you know, just generally a calm demeanor type of guy. But man, when he won that match, I mean, I've never seen him show that much emotion. Maybe I've never even seen anybody else actually in just the World Championship ever show that much emotion.
Which one?
The one where he was just so happy because he expected to lose, right? Like he felt like his decks were complete underdogs to Sento's. And when he won that match, he was so happy. Like he was sitting there hugging Sento for like an extra. He was like lingering there for a few seconds.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know, I was affected by it. When I watched it, I was like, yeah, dude, this is awesome.
It's always so great to see just raw emotion, especially raw positive emotion from the players. I feel like it's something that we don't get that much in Hearthstone. The pro players often don't celebrate their victories as much as maybe they should do. But we saw from Surrender a raw moment from him after one of his games as well. And even Tom in the finals, he said, you know, if there weren't so many people here, I'd be crying. I believe that to his translator. So it's always nice. It's very touching.
It's different when you say it versus like when you're actually doing it, right? Like
That's
because
true.
you know, this is a production, right? We do these things not only just to crown world championships, but you know, we do the broadcast because we want to create these awesome, memorable moments, right, in Hearthstone history. So I think when you know we're able to achieve that, and you know, it would have been even more amazing if it was the finals. But you know, the fact that it still happened in the semifinals. Surrender had a few moments too. Surrender, I mean, that kid, dude, he played amazing. God. I mean,
Surrender is going to be one of the real winners of this tournament, I think, moving forward.
Because he's crazy good. Yeah,
he has the reputation, I think, of being the guy that played the best. And as far as the crowd go, just saw Raven in Twitch chat going, Surrender, Craig Aslan. Raven is a huge fan of Surrender, has been for a long time. But I think the rest of the world are joining him now. Just before it was the day before the final. Sorry, it was the Saturday. I did a meet and greet with Firebat, Pavel, and RDU, and people were asking us as we signed their stuff. Sorry, we were asking them, who do you want to win the tournament at this point? There are only a few left, and solid 70% said Surrender. I'd say 25% said Frozen, and the other 5% said the other two. Like Surrender was a very clear crowd favorite, and he is going to do some amazing things this year, I think.
Yeah, Gaara, did you catch any of Surrender's matches? Like, what do you think about?
Yeah, I know. I respect Surrender. I think that still Tom is very underrated. Like I'm playing mainly on Asia. Like I play on all 3 servers.
Yeah.
And I know Tom from ladder of being all the time rank 1. Like when I'm rank 1, I just see him climbing, like playing 24/7 till he gets rank 1, and he gets there every time. And he qualified. Like he almost qualified for the regionals, right? But he didn't have to win. He was even in the finals or something. Like he was like 1 match away from qualifying for just the regionals. But he was already #1 point earner. Like he would have went to the Worlds anyways. Like I think he's probably like the most underrated player from that tournament, even after winning the Worlds.
I mean, unfortunately, that's the way I think that the kind of Hearthstone Reddit group can be. If you look at Pavel last year, so many people said, oh, he just got lucky. He's babbling booked his way to victory. And he went on to win another tournament, and then another tournament, and then another tournament. And then finally, people started to go, oh, guess Pavel's pretty good at Hearthstone then. Where in reality, even to get to this stage, these players are amazing. And the fact that Tom won, he deserves a lot of respect.
Oh, absolutely he does. And I think the reason why, you know, I mean, even just on this show, I mean, we haven't talked about Tom much, you know, up until now, is just because he just wasn't part of any crazy moments, you know, like the most memorable moments from the event. And that's no fault of his. Like, I just think a lot of his games were a bit more straightforward than, you know, like some of the games that, say, like Surrender had. You know, where, you know, he was beating, you know, like the Druid match. I think two of those games where he played Raza versus Jade Druid, I mean, he navigated those games, I think, better than anybody I've seen. Like, and won those matchups where usually it's just an auto win. Like, okay, you just armor up the entire time as Jay Druid and you win. As long as you get Malfurion early, armor up every single turn, you just win that game. It's like an auto win almost. But he was able to like navigate those games to like literally just barely winning, and I think that's why Surrender got so much attention, is from that game against Frozen, that game against Stan. I think both of those are kind of on my best series candidates too. So, Tom, he's been good for 3 years now. I mean, he made it to the World Champs in 2014. He was close in 15 and 16. And like Tom, Jason, I mean, we've seen these guys like virtually every year, like almost getting to, just whether it's either getting to the World Championships or the playoffs or whatever. So, these guys, even Jason, right? Sometimes Jason doesn't get as much respect, right? And it's just like, come on, guys. Yeah, he might make some questionable plays here and there, but dude, there's nobody much more consistent than Jason Zhao in the last 3 years. So...
If you actually think about it from like a objective point of view, Tom probably deserved the most to win Worlds because he was #1 point earner. So he proved that he was like the best ladder player from Asia.
Yeah.
And he went to preliminaries, like regionals. He qualified for regionals, almost won that, and he won Worlds, right? So like he proved that he's like one of the best tournament players from Asia and the best ladder player.
Yeah.
So overall, it's actually kind of funny to think about.
Yeah. So, this year, maybe the person that deserved to win it actually won it. Oh my God. Hearthstone actually, that can happen in Hearthstone? It's not complete RNG luck? Is this?
Yeah, but there's also like a lot of bad things you can see actually from Worlds, from the overall format. Like I really want to point that out. For example, Europe is the strongest region, right? It's like the natural just because of how many good players are from Europe. Not just they're like the top players from Europe are not the best players in the world. They're like equally as good as the top NA players, I would say. But overall, the most good players are from Europe. We just have so many good players. You can see that at the overall points you needed for the preliminaries.
Okay. Sure, yeah.
You needed 8 more points in Europe to qualify for preliminaries than any other region, just because of so many players. And there were 8 players at Worlds from Europe. That was like by far the most from any region, and that nobody made it into top 8. Right? Nobody from Europe made it into top 8.
Yeah, nobody made it into top 8.
Even though 8 from 16 players were from Europe. That's just that, like the sample size or like of tournament play is just so small for a game like Hearthstone that you can't really expect to go to Worlds and actually win when there's like 16 good players.
Sinto was top 8, right?
What was that?
What?
Sinto was top 8, right?
Sinto? Yeah, Sinto was top 8. He made it to the semis.
Yeah.
And Stan, too. Sinto and Stan made it to the semis, dude.
And Stan.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
All right, but nobody meant top 4.
Yeah.
Top 4 nobody made.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, Stan's officially... Isn't he Ukrainian? Isn't he from Ukraine, or is that
counts?
That counts as Europe.
Right?
Okay.
By the way, that's also like a good big complaint. I have to say. I think that Russia should be their own region.
Seriously, they should have their own region.
No, seriously, there's so many people from Russia.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like like when you look at all the like qualifiers, like how many people from Russia actually play also on the NA on the European ladder, like in the end of the season from like top 50 legends, there's like 25 people from Russia.
Hey, just saying, Russia didn't get past the group stage in the Hearthstone Global Games, okay?
Yeah.
They're not that good, Kappa.
I don't think Stan was playing during that time at all. Maybe that's the reason. No,
yeah,
but,
you're right.
But I think that I mean, you can even just tell from the viewership on Twitch, right? If you ever go, guys, and, I'm always on English, right? So I always see just the English streamers. But if you go and click on the Russian ones, there's like more Russian viewers, I think, than there are English viewers at certain times of the night. So there's a ton of not only Russian viewers, but Russian talented Russian players. So yeah, I think it does them injustice. I think it does them injustice including them in the EU region.
I think they grew a lot in the last 2 years. In the beginning, we didn't have so many Russian players, I believe.
Yeah.
I think in the since 2015, it's skyrocketed like crazy.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're still going to talk a little bit more about Worlds, but I do want to mention again that ZipRecruiter is sponsoring this episode of Value Town. And those of you wondering about ZipRecruiter, if you're like a business owner, and if you if it's important for you to consider trying to hire just different people, contractors, or even full-time employees, and you have like a hard time going to all these other sites and going one by one and trying to figure it out. Well, ZipRecruiter is exactly what you want, because ZipRecruiter goes and they basically aggregate from like all 100 different job sites. And so if you want to post like a job posting, it'll go and do that on all 100 of the sites and help you manage your ability to do that, instead of you having to have an account in all these different sites. So you just go to ZipRecruiter, sign up there. It automatically will be piped into all these other sites. So you just post it one time on ZipRecruiter, track it on ZipRecruiter, and then whenever candidates come in, all the candidates from all these different job sites will just start showing up in ZipRecruiter. So you can just kind of go through it all. So it's really, really great, for if you're looking at, again, for qualified candidates, for whatever job posting you're trying to get. And let's see what else it says. 80% of employers, end up having positive, not positive, experience, but they actually find who they're or at least they fill the job that they're trying to fill. So definitely use ZipRecruiter. It's the smartest way to hire. And if you're trying to if you're coming from here to use ZipRecruiter, go to ZipRecruiter.com/ValueTown, and of course they'll know that it came from ValueTown. That'd be amazing. But yeah, anyways, just thanks to ZipRecruiter for sponsoring this episode. But getting back to the Worlds discussion, let's talk about production a little bit. I feel like just overall this event was good. Outside of the confetti stuff, I feel like the matches were like really on schedule. Like, I mean, do you
know what? HCT has just got it cracked now. I think
yeah,
the way that they handle between games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, you get the short like 1 minute break between individual games sometimes. Like I think it's every hour, but there's no break between series. It very smoothly, interview over to those two casters for a quick chat, and then back to those two casters. Right, next game or next match, let's go. And I think it's just so smooth. There's such a lack of breaks. And when I say there's like a 1 minute break occasionally, that is filled with content. Like there are the little bits I was doing behind the scenes, the little bits from Game Sensei, the little bits, the VTs. Like there is so much content filling the entire day. I think production for HCT is just phenomenal now.
Oh, here goes Gaara.
Talking about this, like ChanManV, do you have actually any insight about if the people that do the Overwatch League production have anything to do with the HCT production? Because I absolutely love the Overwatch League production overall.
I think they're
my favorite
separate.
productions.
They're completely separate teams. Yeah.
So Blizzard really stepped it up, I would say, this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, we can get into Overwatch.
It's so much fun to watch.
But definitely HCT. I think this event in particular. I know a lot of people showed up like on Saturday before starting to record, like all the casters and yourself probably, Dan, and, had to record all these B-rolls, right? Just to fill. And yeah, like you said, I think even just the downtime, I barely even noticed the downtime because there's just so much.
I liked also the interviews they did before the event.
Yeah, totally.
They released the videos like every day of like the players.
Yep.
They were, I think, walking through Amsterdam or something.
Or going home, or kind of tracking them at home, right? Like Muzzy's was like when he was, they did like a little, profile, right, of each of the some of the players, and they would go to where they were living and stuff like that, right? So
that really helps the build up as well towards Worlds. Like I really enjoy that. I think it's very cool.
Yeah. Another thing too is that HS Replay, we one thing is I think it's not that big of a secret, at least amongst the players, but I'm going to be working with them soon. HS Replay, they developed a broadcaster tool with Blizzard this time around too. So the casters actually had the stats from the site, kind of piped to them so they could use just in the broadcast. And so, they were able to throw some stats in. Hopefully we'll be able to do some more in the future. We're still working that out, but hopefully that's going to be a possibility. But yeah, that was a little bit of an addition, that Blizzard wanted to add, to this whole Worlds experience too. So that was, I think, a great thing too. And then on top of that, I think at Worlds at BlizzCon, we never have just something that's like dedicated, like what you were doing, Dan. Just this panel that's just dedicated to just Worlds, not BlizzCon and that sort of thing. So you're able to interview a lot of the influencers and things like that.
It was really fun. We had quite a few different things. I wasn't involved in all of them. Like I said, I had a panel with RDU, Tyson, Firebat, but then we had 4 devs there with us. We had Sale Yoon, Mike Dene, Dean Ayala or Ixar, and Ben Brode.
Yeah.
And there was a panel where like Tice interviewed Ben Brode and RDU interviewed Sale, and I interviewed Ixar. Like we had those one-on-ones. There was the game show, which I don't know if much about that's come out at all. I think there was a little clip in the tournament release, but essentially that was 30 minutes of just so we had physical cards, and basically one member of the team would hold up the card against his head. The players would have to describe which card it is without saying any word on the card, and then the player with it on his head would have to try and guess which card it was. And then after that, we had voice lines where the player would read the voice line, and the teammates
they were about as good as they were on Streamer Showdown doing those.
Oh
things.
man,
they're terrible, man.
I cannot wait for the full video to come out with that, because there was some extremely funny moments, especially with Pavel and with Ben Brode. Like these guys, those guys, stars. Pavel continues to be hilarious at everything he does.
I absolutely love TJ when he does that. He's such a good role player. He's like 10 out of 10. The one that was on Reddit, where like Froden is actually also a good role player. And when he asked him like, "Oh, is there like a guy in the crowd who has a question with the question?"
Yeah, that was so funny.
That was so good.
What is a 5/5?
That was so funny.
Exactly.
I watched it like 10 times.
What card is this?
So
exactly. No, that was
that was funny when they're holding up the card and everyone on the team is like, "It's the card that's gonna get nerfed." Card or creeper. Okay, all right.
No brainer. Worst kept secret ever. No, we'll have to see if that's actually true or not. But definitely some interesting rumors like kind of floating around as to maybe some cards are going to be nerfed. I don't know how much were true or not, but lots to talk about. Some even old cards. I don't like maybe
there was it Wild Growth?
Wild Growth was the biggest one that was being rumored being Hall of Famed. So,
I don't know where that came from. I read on a news site somewhere that Frozen and Purple had said it, but I've literally only read on Twitter like there are rumors.
I don't know if it's like, again, just a pure rumor or not, but that rumor spread really fast because everybody at Worlds knew about that rumor. So, we'll have to see. That'd be pretty crazy world, man. Wild Growth, and then basically all the ramp except for Nourish gone. That would
kind of makes sense.
It will never happen.
You don't think? I think it kind of makes sense.
Because they want Druid to be this green class for Magic, right? That just ramps.
But like, there are still expansion ramp cards coming out. Like there was Greedy Sprite in the latest set. They might, if they're rotating out Wild Growth, they might print another ramp card that does it in a different way. There was it Dalaran Aspirant? Was that the name of the card? The 2-mana 2/3 that there was that.
Was it Dalaran? Was it Dalaran Aspirant? Whatever. I know what you're talking about though.
But like, yeah, that might have been it. Yeah. But there's that. Like they could do all sorts, and having Wild Growth as an evergreen card might be limiting to the design space. I don't know.
Druid would be a completely different thing if it didn't have. I mean, I'm not even sure they're even prepared for that life, without Wild Growth right now. So
I think they said that also, like in some interviews, that they always want Druid to be that ramp-ish class in the game.
Yeah.
How would you nerf Wild Growth, make it like 1 mana more expensive?
Let's face it, Mage changes pretty dramatically if they lose Ice Block too.
Yeah.
That's true, and that's been
what Mage deck does.
Arcane Artificer will not replace Iceblock for the people that are wondering, or all the people that are asking me. No, it's not Iceblock.
There's no replacing. That's the thing. Like, there's never going to be like a 1-to-1 type of replacing. It's going to be a just an evolution of the class. There might be a gradual evolution, but I don't think if they get rid of those cards, it's going to be a complete identity switch. For the class. So. I'm not going to expect another Wild somehow. Yeah.
I hope they don't just do random stuff, that they actually do research, they actually do playtesting, because I'm actually so tilted because they're so inconsistent with what they do. Yeah. With like how they argue, how they justify all the nerfs in the past. Like one great example is that they nerfed like Warsong Commander, Charge, Arcane Golem, Leroy.
It's being improved though, right? Like it's getting better.
Well, they've
actually not. And I give you like the counter example now. They don't want this uninteractive gameplay in Hearthstone, right? Where you just die from like Leroy double power whelming. Then they rotate out these cards, and now we have Quest Mage, Quest Rogue, like Razakus Priest. Like we have like all these non-interactive decks that they're trying to get out of the game, and we have more than ever before. It's like so inconsistent, than the nerf Ancient of Law, because it's too powerful to ramp it out and then draw 2 cards for 7 mana, and then they put manifestation.
The main thing there, though, is that they don't want like an evergreen set of cards that are that are
Yeah,
OTK.
it's
Like,
about just
if
like
there's-
basic set and classic
Yeah.
set, you know.
No, their argumentation, they always say why. For example, they don't want these like non-interactive OTK combos. That's why they nerf charge. That's why they nerf the Warsong Commander. That's like, they always have like an explanation why they don't want that. The Hex nerf was like the best. It's like limits.
There was no point in that.
Yeah, it's the timing. Like, for example, when Patron Warrior was OP, the Hunter's Mark should have been 1 mana at that point. And they nerfed Hunter's Mark when they implemented J Druid, when Control Warrior was already unplayable, and then they nerfed Hunter Execute 1 mana.
I mean,
the same with Hunter. They nerfed Unleash the Hunter, they nerfed Buzzard, they nerfed every card. And the Hunter was complete garbage for 2 years, and then they nerfed Hunter's Mark.
The Execute nerf was because of Dragon Priest, right? Sorry, Dragon Warrior, right?
Yeah, but that was already like after.
I don't even think it was for Drag. I mean, I see. The thing is that some of these, I don't know why we're going down this, but just to kind of maybe like you know, maybe just
you started with Ice Block.
Yeah,
it's related.
Try to at least you know, limit this kind of tangent here, but the reason for like Execute and the reason for Hex and those were things that were just like in the pipeline for a long time now. It had nothing to do with reactive. I think they just did it because it just needed to be done like a long time ago, so they do it. And this might be the same thing with this rumor with Wild Growth. It might be something they've been just thinking about doing for a long time. Ice Block, right? How long have we been hearing about Ice Block being retired? So you know, who knows?
By the way,
we'll see what happens. But you know,
the weirdest thing is that they nerfed War Leader but not South Sea Captain, because South Sea Captain is so much bigger problem.
Well,
because everyone plays it with the patches.
Warsong, or wait, what do you mean? Warsong? Or oh no, you're talking about the Murloc.
The War Leader, the Murloc War Leader.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Did it blast every Murloc 1 HP?
I thought you were saying Warsong Commander.
No.
Patron was definitely a bigger threat than South Sea Captain.
Yeah. Almost every deck plays South Sea Captain now, right? That pulls up patches, and because we have patches.
It's not necessarily so much about like, you know, how it affects the immediate future. It's just you know, like with the Murlocs, for instance, I think it is better. I think it is better that it is more of an attack only type of buff than a health one.
That applies to the Captain as well, but has a way more like immediate.
Well, not really, because as soon as patches is gone, South Sea Captain's bad again, right?
Yeah,
it's as War Leader. Like, how is War Leader different? I can't see it.
I think a pirate. I think pirate also is more of a basic type of you know, just the pirate class, or not class, what do you call it, the tribe itself, right? I think there's cheaper pirates, and I think, you know, free to play players probably play pirates a little bit more, so it's, you know, it might be more important from that standpoint of the game than more so than, you know, just us who have all the cards and things, because Murlocs are generally more expensive than pirates are, right? So you know, sure. I think the Murlocs are generally just better, you know, like how many pirates do we actually have that are super good? We only play 2 or 3 of them right now. You know,
Patches, Deckhand, Captain.
I mean, maybe the Corsair.
That's it, right?
I mean, whenever Pirate Warrior was around, we played more. We played like 5, right, or 6 sure. maybe, yeah. But outside of that, you know, I don't know. I mean, I can see your point, Gaara. I just don't think it's like crazy bad. Especially,
I mean, you play it in every deck, in every tempo-ish deck. You play like South Sea Captain. I've seen it like even in freaking Control Mages. Every deck, pretty much.
But you'd probably play it. You'd probably still play it though, even if it was nerfed, right? Like you have to trigger patches in some way. So
I entirely agree with you. The Wild Growth nerf would be weird.
Okay, all right, good way to conclude that segment there. But yeah, so overall production, I think production was great. This event, I think, you know, Blizzard should, you know, pat themselves on the back for this event. I think this event was fantastic, best one, I would say. You know, and it wasn't distracted too. We could actually focus on it. So I actually am in favor of not doing it at BlizzCon. So I'm kind of happy that they took it away. I just feel like they need to replace BlizzCon with something else, because BlizzCon for Hearthstone, I mean, just to be as frank as possible, it was probably one of the worst ones.
Wait, the global finals, the HGG or something like that?
No,
it was like the college.
It was an invitational.
No, I mean, you could do that.
Yeah, you could you could do the global finals there. Yeah, that could be something. But they need to replace it with something major at BlizzCon, because this year
the invitational wasn't so hot, was it?
No, and then we had the test, but we had the innkeeper thing too. The firesides, right? The fireside, whatever, the finals of that competition where they go against
that kind
each
of thing is good community building stuff, though, right?
It is, but BlizzCon's supposed to be epic. You know what I mean? Like compared to like Overwatch and the World Cup, that was crazy epic. You know, and then you have the Heroes. I think the Heroes Championships there too.
And World of Warcraft as well.
Yeah, you can't just have, these fun exhibitions and like it's like very side stuff for Hearthstone at BlizzCon. So, I hope they do something epic just to kind of match up with the other titles. So yeah, World's awesome. HCT, 2018. It's going to be, I'm excited to see where it's going to be. We're clearly just moving around all over the world at this point. So, who knows? It could be in where? Like, I hope it's not Australia. There's so many things in Sydney. Maybe it's
in my garage.
In your garage. In Gaara's garage. Gaara's garage. That would be not epic at all.
What? You don't know my garage? How can you say that?
Can your garage fit 1,000 people in it?
I'll make them fit.
Dude, Gaara's like the life coach we never knew, man. He's got like money just stacked in his garage.
He lives right around the corner.
He lives right around the corner. Okay. All right, guys. Well, why don't we move on to some meta trends? But before we do, I want to give a shout out to just our patrons who are the main supporters of the show. Have always been the main supporters. Without you guys, we're not able to do the show. So I always want to spend a little time, give you guys a little bit of a shout out, just to let you guys know that we appreciate you guys. So to our legendary producer Mike T and Devin Y, Engine S, Raydan, Bob K, Hutton J, Chris Chilmall, Casey814. Blake T, Jamaican, Mario P, Nathan W, Kevin G, and Raptor, just to name a few. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. If you do enjoy the show, you got $1, whatever, 50 cents, anything, go to patreon.com/valuetown and contribute there because it really, really helps out in a big way. Also, you can find us on iTunes. You want to leave a 5-star review, that's be awesome too. It helps out in people trying to find Hearthstone, Hearthstone podcast whenever they're searching for it. Okay, let's talk about meta. So, Gaara, you've been destroying it, right? Like in High Legend lately. So tell us about the meta. Like, what are we seeing right now? Because I'm gonna bring up.
It's probably the worst positive meta we ever had in the history of Hearthstone.
Oh my God, you're so positive today, man.
Dude, no, it's I'm just realistic. I'm not like negative or positive. What I'm trying to be is real. Yeah. Like I'm trying to be like real. Like if I enjoy the meta. Just keep Tell us what's going on. No, I got like rank 1 legend so many times, and I know like. Then I can say what is bad, what is good, and all that stuff. Like right now, for example, even though I'm high legend, the way how I get there is so frustrating and really boring. It's like you really feel like you have to play like thousands of hours just to compensate like bad draws, because in Hearthstone we have like all the top decks have such a draw RNG hero component built into them through Alunev, through the Skull of Manari from the Warlock. Through Kelesev Shadow Step, through Razakus Anduin, and all these top tier decks play these cards. And when you play these mirrors, like Razakus Mirror is a matchup you play all the time, every day. And it's so draw dependent. Yes, there's a lot of skill involved in them. Yes, you can do a lot of plays, but the core of it is whoever draws Raza and Anduin first usually tends to win the game. And that is so frustrating. And this is why it's for me personally frustrating to watch like high level tournament play, because if someone has those cards in their starting hand, like he's very favorite to win.
Gonna win.
Like I hate all these cards. Patches, Kelesev, you see if one player draws Patches, it's kind of like an unfair game. If one player draws Kelesev and the other one draws Patches, it's such an unfair game. And as a spectator, you can see that. On ladder, you can't see if my opponent. That's also another thing. If I play the Razakus Mirror, I can't see if he has already Razakus Anduin or the combo pieces. But when I play it and I have it and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna win the game. I know I'm gonna win the game, but my opponent doesn't know it. It's such a weird feeling, like playing the games, and it's such a high roll aspect to it, and I just don't enjoy it. Also, like I always had in all months, all 4 years before, I could always find like a niche deck to counter like the meta, semi-counter with a tier 2 deck. Like for example, before Kobold Catacombs, I played Control Mage, so I was known for Control Mage. Like there were like still Razakus Priest and all that stuff, but I could counter the meta. I could counter Jade Druid and Razak's Priest with my Control Mage, but Control Mage hasn't gotten any new cards. And I tested really everything, dude. I have a spreadsheet of 20 pages of every archetype from Paladin, Shaman, every class, and I tested all of them. And I can't find a niche deck that is not Razakus Priest or Q Block or like any of these tier 1 decks.
They're very different, that's why. Like,
and
countering these
worse.
decks are very, very hard.
So much worse. And they're like the power level is just so much worse. So you basically are forced to jam Razakus Priest or Q Block and just wait till you high roll. It's just not fun, I would say. Like, the meta is not fun. Maybe it's not like super bad, but it's really not fun to play.
So I'm just looking at Aegis Replay right now, and just like, this is all of Legend. So this is not skewed just for the top of Legend. So they actually, right now we're actually seeing a lot of like this aggro type of deck, like at the top, and this is, again, like, this is probably all 2,000-3,000, whatever, 4,000 of Legend. So Q Block and Highlander are a little bit further down here, but you're saying basically Q Block, Highlander Priest, those are all basically the top ones right now. Like,
but that's what you face all the time. I don't know, like, I also use Hearthstone Replay a lot, and I always play High Legend, but you rarely face Murloc Paladin. I think if that would actually be the best deck to ladder with, you will see it so much more often. But when you actually play, I also talk with other High Legend players from Europe, and you rarely face Murloc Paladin or like Aggro Paladin in High Legend. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, the matchups are. I mean, I think Murloc Paladin is something that you can get to Legend with, pretty quickly. So maybe a lot of the, some of the stats are probably based on like kind of lower in Legend there. But I mean, these are a lot of what we saw at World, the World Championships, right? So there's nothing that's surprising, except for the fact that there's a lot more, aggressive things going on, which has a lot to do with just number of games too. People just trying to grind out games at times too. So
of course, playing faster decks on the ladder just always makes a lot of sense, because you can get through them twice as fast, and as long as you have any positive win rate whatsoever, then there's going to be an advantage to doing that. So
what's interesting is if you click on the trending, tab on Aegis Replay, these are the decks that are basically trending in the last 48 hours. So velocity, like, these are the ones that people are playing and whatnot, and you can see like they're I think the anti-Highlanders basically being the most, or even just anti-Cube, right, with Aggro Hunter too. So
that's also so frustrating, because you can't just play Highlander Priest, because the meta is usually Highlander Priest and all decks that counter Highlander Priest. So your win rate with Highlander Priest will also be pretty bad, because everyone is trying to counter you. I face so many Quest Rogues and Quest Mages and that stuff.
You face Quest Rogues, really?
A lot of Quest Rogues.
Really? What are they playing?
It's so frustrating.
Are they playing Gibber or anything like that? What are they playing right now? I didn't even look at Quest Rogues.
Some people play the Mill Quest Rogue, and that's like almost 0% chance to beat. Right, because they auto-lose to aggro, but people counter-queue. That's what I hate about ladder. Everyone does counter queuing. Like, you always have to wait before you queue if you beat someone.
Yeah.
They just counter queue with Mill Quest Rogue, and if you play Q Block or a Razakus Priest, it's like 0%.
Yeah,
it's so one-sided.
Yeah, and then Jade Drew, look at this. Jade Drew does like really bad against most other decks. It's literally only good against. I mean, it can do decent against aggro too if you get like Spreading Plague, but for the most part, it doesn't have a great winning percentage against anything but Highlander Priest.
And people do very, very tricky stuff. People usually play two versions of the same class. People play Aggro Druid and Jade Druid, so that other people mulligan wrong. They just do the same with Warlock. They play Zoo. Zoo is pretty good right now, and Demon Lock. It's frustrating. It's like it feels like everyone tries to cheat in a way. It's legal cheating.
Well, there's also the appear offline thing now, isn't there?
Cheese is a better
appear
word.
offline thing. What do you mean?
Well, when you appear offline, you appear as your opponent to your opponent.
Oh, right. I mean, you can hide it, right? You can't hide it, but it doesn't stop the fact that if you both queue at the same time, and he counter queues just out of reactionary reasons. And he's not stream sniping you. He's just like counter queuing, and then you queue right into him, right? So it's you do have to wait. I mean, so you have to wait like 10 seconds. How hard is it to wait?
No, not 10 seconds. Are you kidding me? On High Legend, you have to wait 5 minutes
that's
plus.
True. High Legend is much longer.
You have to wait 5 minutes plus. Because
it's definitely
Ball Control had just hit Legend in one of the first days this month. I was with him, and he hit Legend. He got rank 2, and he started queuing. It took a solid 7 or 8 minutes for him to find a game. It was pretty crazy.
Well,
can you imagine then trying to dodge someone?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you do, Gaara. Like, if you're playing a bunch of these priest mirrors, just play the darkness over.
Yeah, I'm farming these
completely done.
priests, by the way, that play darkness. With
You're farming them.
Yeah, because they play bad. Like honestly, if you go down to the science, you just have to play the best version of the deck.
Yeah.
Because you make all your other matchups worse. Like
Yeah,
overall,
that's
it's
true.
the best just to play the best version of the deck. As at least for ladder, tournament is different.
Yeah, you're probably dropping a card draw for the darkness. You know, I don't know which one it is, but you're probably.
But the people don't just play darkness; they play Skulking Guys, Darkness, Cold Light Oracle.
Oh, I don't know. Wow. Okay, that's a bit crazy. It's like you're not actually trying to get the darkness, are you?
It's weird.
It's more just to screw with them and not allow them to put Raza down so fast. But okay, well, I think that's maybe kind of a look at what's going on in the meta. I mean, nothing that much has changed. I think that the only thing I saw that was kind of starting to trend, based on I love this Discover tab, by the way. If you click on this for the last few days or whatever, you'll see that where is it? Here, the latest. Here you go. You'll see that there's a new druid that's popping up, which is I think the giant one. The giant one's
it's popping right now, this druid deck.
Yeah, what?
It's popping right now, this druid deck.
It's popping, yeah, exactly. So like if you look at like now, right? There's no sign of this deck anywhere, and this is kind of how this Discover is on HS Replay. And then all of a sudden, you see this just appear out of nowhere, and it's the giant version of
with Trigger the World Tree. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's got the Arcane Giants too. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting how things just pop up out of nowhere sometimes. That's definitely cool. But yeah, so definitely check it out. We've only got a week. I think next week, probably when Valleytown airs again, we're going to be literally in the Watchstone type of arena, where everybody's going to be trying to finish out the month. And Gaara, looks like you're shooting for. What's the minimum you're shooting for?
Top 10.
Top
then
10?
I can camp. Like I want to finish top 20 I did so much preparation last year. Like I finished 2 months rank 1. And I tested all the combinations of how many servers I can play at the same time, and all that stuff. And how long do I have to play on one server? What rank do I have to finish before I start the next server? And all that stuff. Yeah. And I just want to hit the 45 points. I will not miss any prelims ever again.
Wow.
All right. I love the determination. So good stuff.
It's a lot of grinding. Actually, it's equally as much grinding as before last year HCT, but now we don't have to play the open cups. Like you still have to grind so many hours for ladder, but not playing like every single day for 6 or 8 hours for open cups really actually changes so much, so you can focus more on ladder. But it still feels like a huge grind, to be honest, to qualify for this year's HCT, just from like personal experience.
Well, I saw somebody post on Reddit that they were really adding up all of Tom's accomplishments this past year, and Tom would only be a 1-star. He'd only be in that 1-star tier, even after winning
it's
the
crazy.
World
People have no idea.
He only gets 20 points for winning the World Championship. Like, what? Are you serious?
People have no idea how many points.
You're automatically in tier 3. Like
he did just win $250,000.
I know, but
like
still.
how much money does he need?
But do you know how crazy that is? Like the number 1 point earner of last year would be a 1-star.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
There are more points this year. Okay, so it is a little bit skewed. It's a little bit more for just like for discussion, entertainment purposes. But still, he only got 20 points for Worlds. He should have gotten way more than 20 points for Worlds. There's no way. Come on, man. That's not right. So and we want him to possibly have a chance to repeat. That's. I don't like it when it's like a complete reset for like the previous winner. That's not the kind of storylines we want to see,
Look how close Pavel got to qualifying again this year. Didn't he
Pavel's just
lose out twice? Like barely? Yeah. Completely nuts. It would be, wouldn't you love to see 2018 world champion Pavel versus Tom matchup for the finals?
Yeah.
Gaara wouldn't like that. Gaara wants to be in the finals himself. But
and then we can have Scott and Firebat casting that or something. No, but that'd be pretty epic to definitely see that. But so anyways, I think that could be tweaked some. But I'm excited about this year. I think that some of the tour stops are going to be happening very, very soon. I think the Europe one is in a couple weeks, right?
That's
something like that. So we'll get a chance to see what these kind of major tour stops are going to be like too. because I'm assuming that Blizzard's going to be involved in each one of them to some extent. So they've got to be better than they were in the past, at least some of these events. Okay, well, anyways, let's move on. Deck of the week. So this is where we usually pick a deck, have like just everybody that listens to Value Town try it out, and usually send in your win rates. And we have like a mini show on Monday where we have patrons come on, be our guests, and we just talk about it. We take into account everybody's stats and just kind of talk about any deck that's like. Should we do that Druid deck that's happening right now? That Arcane, is that actually good? What is it good against outside of Raza? It's definitely good against Raza, but is it good against Raza? Man, those giants are going to come out whenever Anduin's in play, right? So it should be. It should be good against Druid. So maybe we do that one, guys. We're going to do this giant Jade Druid deck. So
okay.
Yes.
You could do the Cartoon one. That's actually popping right now.
Really? Cthulhu?
Yeah, the spiteful
Cthulhu Druid? What?
No, the spiteful summoner. Cthulhu
Druid.
The curve one. Druid. Thais was playing it, but I've seen also like a lot of people.
Cthulhu Druid? Okay, that sounds really cool. We're going with that.
The spiteful summoner Cthulhu Druid with ultimate infestation.
You're just naming all the cards at this point, dude.
Yeah.
The Spiteful Summoner, Corridor Creeper, Cthulhu, Infested UI.
Yeah, that's actually like that popped up like in the previous days or so. It's a legit deck.
Okay, well, we've only got like 2 months left to play with Cthulhu, so or maybe 3 months left to play with Cthulhu. So let's get in there. Okay, Spiteful Summoner, Cthulhu Druid. I'll look it up. I'm sure Ty's probably posted it somewhere. And I'll post it on the Patreon site too. You don't have to be a patron, guys, to participate in this. So just go to patreon.com/valuetown just to even look at the posts because they're all public. All right, Q&A, guys. We got 3 questions. Ahmad and our regular, he asked, will new team competition dynamic break up some of the big think tanks we have in the game due to competition between teams? Will we have a coach role in teams, as I think some players are very talented, but don't try hard as often like Chalky does? Okay, so I guess, will this whole team dynamic break up a lot of this mingling between, or even just like prepping between a bunch of players kind of across teams? I think a lot of that's happening right now. These players aren't even on team, so I think it will to a degree.
Well, I think one of the things that will happen is that teams will try harder because now there's actually stuff on the line. Teams will try harder, or organizations will try harder rather, to get a team of 3 competitive players who work well together. So these groups of players that take Mitsuhide, Orange, and Hunter Race, for example. These groups of players that try hard all the time on their own, like as a group, regardless of what team they're on, maybe they get signed together if a team wants to be successful. And I think we'll see a little bit more of that happening.
Yeah, I think we already kind of are seeing that happening, but definitely like the G2, that they have their own kind of practice group. I think we've seen this Tempo Storm now having their own, and I mean, I think you're right about that, Dan. I think some folks would just be getting picked up together because like when one of them gets picked up, they're obviously going to recommend the other guys too, right? So it's kind of a natural type of thing. A lot of these teams, don't necessarily have like a GM or something that's very, very in touch with Hearthstone, so they really rely on the players to help out with that. I still think that there will be some cross team type of prep still, because if you guys are on opposite brackets, you might as well just help each other out. There's no point in practicing together until you run into each other like in the finals or something like that.
I heard a rumor that Frozen and Pavel might like to work together on a team. Now that would be a team to be reckoned with.
They're not on. They're teamless right now, right?
They're both teamless, I believe.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if you are an organization that is even thinking about getting in Hearthstone, you should get into it now. Because next year, there's not going to be any. There's going to be a lot of people a lot of teams in Hearthstone next year, and you're not going to have the pick of the litter right now. There's so many good players right now that are teamless.
They were on a team together in China for Gold Club World Championship. They worked very well together. I've heard at Worlds that they've both been saying they'd like to work together.
Really?
So
okay.
That could be one hell of a team.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be super sick. Who does Frozen normally work with? I'm trying to think. Who do those guys usually practice with outside of themselves? Frozen used to be part of Luminosity, right?
Frozen tweeted that his practice partners for Worlds were APX Void and Hyped.
Oh, God, Hyped of all. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Oh man, that's so cool that Hype's still around. Like I didn't even know he was still playing Hearthstone. I thought Hyped was I mean he was obviously doing Overwatch, like months ago, and then he kind of got dropped, but I thought he was playing a different game. It's cool to see George playing Hearthstone again. That's Hype's a good guy. I kind of wanted to see him back in the Hearthstone community. That's definitely a good thing. All right, Thunderbolt. And I think Thunderbolt is a patron during an HCT panel. We got the panel guy right here. Firebat mentioned that it's really difficult to succeed at both streaming and competing.
Okay, I wasn't part of this.
Oh, you weren't part of this one? Okay. I'm sure that streaming make more money, but how much more? How much do the top casters like Crip, Tice, Savitz, etc. make? I saw Tice pulling 18K plus last week when he was streaming himself playing HCT qualifier tourney. So let's talk to the streamer here. Gaara.
At least right now, or how it was for the last 2 years, is you had to do both pretty much. It's kind of like, it's not a good system, but if you want to get invited in most tournaments, you have to be a streamer. It's just how you get recognized. It's like a very crucial thing to do, and then it's like a bad thing, I guess. But you have to do it. It's also like what most teams are looking for. That's how you get into a team. Like most teams are looking for like how often you're streaming, how big your stream is. That's how you get into these top teams. And you see like a lot of these top players that are teamless now that are getting dropped from their teams just because they're not streaming. There's a lot of top players.
I think that changes this year, though. I think
I think we're starting.
From what I've heard, like behind the scenes, it still like matters the most. Also, like for the organizations to like acquire a Hearthstone roster, it hopefully will change because Blizzard is cooperating more. But Blizzard is so slow; it should have happened like way sooner.
I think it should go without saying, though, that like the biggest streamers, and I'm not necessarily talking Hearthstone here, just the biggest streamers on Twitch make absurd amounts of money.
Right now, I think streamers are they're making the most they've ever made. And it's insane. I mean,
so like
crazy
if you can grow your stream big enough, like you just don't need to compete, because you actually lose money by not turning on your stream for the day and heading out to a tournament.
But look right now, like these streamers already make by far the most money compared to like professional Hearthstone players. But on top of it, they get invited over every top player to most Hearthstone tournaments, if there's any invite.
But that all has to do.
Always invite Kriparian over, like.
But that well, I mean, Krip doesn't go to these things anymore, so
it's because he's declining. I know from like
exactly. It's just he doesn't.
They're declining those tournaments, but they would be invited over the top Hearthstone pros.
Well, that has to do with sponsors. That has to do with ads and sponsors. That's what they want, right? So
I think the gap really is going to get bigger this year, though, because
it's going to start.
Emphasis.
It's going to start.
There's such an emphasis on full-time players, right? These tour stops, the qualifiers are happening all day. They're starting at 10 in the morning or something. They're not aimed at people that have jobs. They're not even strictly aimed at people that have streams. They are aimed at people that want to be full-time competitive players, and it's going to be hard to get in. But I think the players that do well this year are going to be heavily rewarded for that.
Yeah, they're starting it. I mean, I don't think we'll see the full, just really the full change in culture, and from that standpoint, until maybe next year, where we see teams actually significant teams come and they're only picking up top players because they want to get that team, money, that team prize money, right, from HCT. So I think it'll be very clear, I think, by 2019 as to what's going on. But you're right, Gaara. Like all the Chinese tournaments, they're completely, from the standpoint of Westerners, they only look at people that either have, it's like a combination. Maybe like some of them are very focused on streamer centric type of. Some of them are, like the All-Star thing was completely about good players, right? So
for Gold Club World Championship, I believe one player was invited, and then the player was asked to pick two teammates. I think that's how it worked.
Oh, is it? Okay, that's kind of cool
for the teams there.
Yeah, that's kind of
and we ended up with some very cool teams.
Yeah. So to answer your question, streamers are making a lot of money. Let's just generalize it and say thousands of dollars when they just stream. Okay, like just
depending on how big they are, right?
I mean, even if you're not like Crip level, I mean, some people are making in the thousands range just every time they stream. So it's good life. Definitely good life being a streamer right now. And that's why Savitz just doesn't go anywhere except for he just sits there and streams.
It's worth noting. I just want to add as well that the Gold Club World Championship last year, there were a lot of good players there, not just streamers. All 4 of the top players from Worlds were present at the Gold Club World Championship. Doc Pone was there as well. Like, there were a lot of high quality players who weren't necessarily the most famous. So actually, China's been okay for that.
They've had a good mixture, you know, like in 6-0, 6-0 lives in China, I swear, that guy. So there's been a combination. I think it's a good combination. I think also, just you guys, that streamers just don't want to go to these events anymore because they're making so much money streaming.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I don't think it's actually hurt as much as it used to. Oh my God. It used to be like literally every invitational.
It used to be so bad.
Yeah. And literally they would take them all too. So now I don't think it's so much that it's starting to bisect into, okay, streaming life or, you're a Hearthstone player and it's starting to improve on both ends of it. All right.
That's partly because esports is growing. Yeah. We're getting to that point where that's possible.
Hearthstone's an esport, Dan? Really? Okay, but anyway.
Esports, boys!
Exactly. All right, last question. Jason, do you think the lack of innovation of common player... Okay, so there needs to be a little bit of backstory to this because he actually had a longer email. So Jason, he's somebody actually in my Discord that apparently he went to a bunch of different Discord communities and basically had a deck that he put the code in there, and it's like a very unrefined deck, right? And the whole point was, he was trying to see if he's kind of making this kind of fun concept on his own and seeing if anybody had suggestions to help him out. And basically the reception he was getting was just like, why are you playing that? You should just play like meta decks, like, whatever changes, right? And his question kind of based on that feedback that he got was, do you think the lack of innovation of the common player is a problem? And I think he means just like, I'm not sure exactly what that question is, but is it something that teams... he says Team 6, Team 5 should care about, or am I crazy for wanting to not only have some fun building, or some fun by building something not already defined by pros and maybe win more than half my games? Okay, so I guess like the culture is the general culture in the Hearthstone community, I think, is to to net deck, right? And I think that a lot of people just default to that. So they don't even bother trying to, problem solve themselves. So is there anything wrong with it? No. I mean, I think everybody chooses the way they want to play Hearthstone. And I mean, I don't think it's right for me to tell somebody to like, hey, you should figure it out yourself. You should net deck. At the same time, I shouldn't tell somebody to net deck either, right?
I think the problem, the core problem with that is the overall balance in Hearthstone. Because for a long time we have now that the top decks are so much stronger than like the next best decks. Also, you can see that for tournament lineups right now. Like Razaku's Priest, or like not just Razaku's Priest, we have Inner Fire Priest and Spiteful Priest, all the Priest decks. Priest and Warlock are by far the 2 strongest classes right now. And like there's a huge gap to the 3rd best deck. Like, I'm not kidding. Like everyone, if you look now in a Pro Tour, dude, we have over 1,100 players, and like almost everyone has the same bun strategy, right? And the same 2 decks, like with Priest and Warlock. You can't have so many players just because it's so obvious that these 2 classes or these 2 decks are the 2 best decks. And the problem is really the gap to the 3rd best. There's such a huge gap. Like if it would be a closer, people would be playing like all sorts of different stuff. People would be playing Hunter and stuff. It's just that the power level is the gap is so huge between the best decks and the next best decks. I think people would not net deck as much if we don't have like the clear best decks,
But if you didn't have clear best
decks,
it
used to be in vanilla.
If you didn't have clear best decks, though, we would have all these decks to have like 52, 53, 54%. And then
I don't think when you optimize them, like you put a lot of work into them, you tech them right for the meta, you would still have your 60% plus win rates, and that's all you need. But you would have a huge variety of decks.
Okay,
that's what we did in the beginning of Hearthstone. Like we could play all sorts of different stuff, and when you like optimized Face Hunter, I had freaking 75% win rate or whatnot, just because it countered the meta and it was not net decked or whatever. Right now, but really, Demon Lord and Razaku's Priest, those classes and those archetypes are so much better than everything else. Like all sorts of.
They're definitely powered. Dan, you're trying to say something?
Well, I used to agree with the point that it kind of sucks that a new expansion comes out and everyone's already playing the best decks. Like, it really used to annoy me. If a new expansion came out, I've made this exciting deck myself. My first opponent, it's a Pirate Warrior. Fantastic. But ultimately, Hearthstone's a competitive game, right? And everyone playing ranked on the ladder is playing to win, and you shouldn't really expect anything other than the best decks. If a new expansion comes out, it's kind of down to you whether or not you look up the decks or whether you try and make stuff yourself. And it's your decision whether you play on the ranked ladder or whether you play with friends. Hearthstone is played the way you want to play it, but if you're jumping straight into ranked ladder, you should expect competitive decks. That's sort of what it's there for.
Yeah. And I mean, to answer Jason, I don't think Jason's like really debating whether, like if he changed his deck completely and, he would be winning more or whatever. I think it's just more that like people's first reactions are just like, don't even try to make your own deck. Just go and find just whatever the best deck is on like Aces Replay. And that should not be the case. So Jason,
someone has to make the decks, right?
If I'm going to recommend something to you, Jason, like you should go check out like, it's like Zalae's Deck Doctor, or Firebat's Deck Doctor. Both of them do like some kind of series in terms where they take a deck that somebody sent them and then they just like make recommendations to kind of keep that same style that you have.
Actually, the main cause for that is that Hearthstone is so expensive now. This is what I've seen. People have like, people are investing so little money in the game, or like they're still investing a reasonable amount of money, but they don't want to waste their dust. Like they when they craft cards, they want to have a good deck. This is why they're like really just trying to net deck so much.
Yeah.
Because it's too expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive. It's not easy. I think a lot of people that can, have the Corridor Creepers and the Spiteful Summers, they are going to do better even at lower levels, right? So, one thing that's underrated too, guys, is just becoming a better player. Like there is playing skill in this, and a lot of people can get, we see streamers, we see top pros that literally go free to play and they're able to climb the ladder even with, trying to build inferior versions of these decks, right? And they're still able to get by. And that has a lot to do with just good playing. So, there's a lot to be said about that. Is it like in this very vacuum where you can really track your progress because everybody's playing the same deck? No, it's not. But that's the reality of it. It's nothing we can do about it. Even if we had like a tournament system, you're still going to be in that same boat, right? So, yeah, anyways, everybody, I think everybody should just accept the fact everybody plays differently. If you want to try to climb ladder, net decking is going to be your most efficient way to do that. If you don't want to, then cool. Just, try to find a place where you can get some advice on, trying to.
We have ranked floors now, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the show. That's all we got for today. This has been a lot of fun, and Falcone, thanks for stepping in for Soddle, who, by the way, guys, he got food poisoning or something. Like he literally ate like 15 minutes before the show and was puking like right afterwards. So
eating, big mistake.
Yeah, he's eating. Hopefully we can have Soddle on again in the near future. But Dan, you want to do any shout outs before we take off?
Oh God, I haven't even thought about that. You can follow me on Twitter with that tag right there.
There you go. Yep.
And that's about it. Just huge shout out to Blizzard, I guess, for an amazing event last week. Thanks for having me, and thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, and look for Dan. He's been hosting a lot of Blizzard official events more and more lately, especially in 2017. How many events did you cast or? Host
I don't even know.
A bunch, right?
The Hearthstone Global Games took up the majority of my time, but I did a couple Dream Hacks. I did Seat Story. I did a few weeks in China. I did a couple events in South Korea. Yeah, I was pretty busy last year. I'm hoping this year can be just as great.
That's going to be awesome, man. Totally. Gaara, how about you, man? Shout outs?
Shout outs as well to my Twitter right here.
Yep. Yeah. There it is.
And to the Gaara Boys Film Squad Nation, you guys know who you are. And to you, Chairman, and all the viewers of this amazing show. It's always fun.
Awesome. And I'll wrap things out. Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I know we started late today, guys, so hopefully we will be back on time next week. But you can find the VODs on youtube.com/ChanManV. You can find the audios on iTunes as well as Android or any of the podcast apps that are really popular out there. It just basically finds our feed, and you can just look up Hearthstone or Value Town, and you'll find us. If you enjoy it, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. It helps out a bunch. This episode, again, was sponsored by ZipRecruiter and our patrons, of course. if you want to support the show too, go to patreon.com/valuetown and donate something. Now we'd greatly appreciate that. But that's going to be it, guys, for Valuetown this week. So for Falcone, Gaara, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next week.